Hey, whoa, hello. Oh my God. Um, Good morning. How's it going? I'm still getting dressed. It's fine. Um, hmm, it's interesting. I'm really glad you're here for this Quilt Nerd Shorty. I enjoy these. I'm still figuring out the timing of them. You know, usually when we do Quilt Nerd in the evenings on Tuesdays and Saturdays, we go a couple hours. It's kind of the live stream format. Let me make sure people can hear me. Stephanie, I just can't do this without you at this point. We'll talk. Hey, Marianne. Hi from London. Excellent. So we go a couple hours, the live stream format. That's kind of the way it is, you know. You just kind of go however long you want, and we have discussions, and it's great. So the idea for the shorties is to try to, make short episodes of Quilt Nerd. And so far, I've been, I don't know, what's successful? I've gone about an hour the 2 times I've done it. So I'm going to try to keep shaving off a little bit of time. Maybe it was like 45 minutes last time. I don't know. But it's nice to touch base and try out these little things and hopefully get some YouTube videos out of it, some recorded content in that way. Hey, Sherlock and everybody. I'm not going to say hi to everybody. Not this time. Got to get going. Today, I thought I thought we'd look at words on quilts, and mostly, like last time, we talked about pictorial quilts, and there emerged this fascinating discussion about what a pictorial quilt actually is, what constitutes a pictorial quilt. Are representational blocks inherently pictorial? It got super nerdy, and it was great. This week, this shorty, it's just kind of eye candy. I mean, there's, what do you say about words that appear on quilts? Words have appeared on, I should say text, right? Text or letters. Words have appeared on quilts for so long. I mean, yeah, as long as people are writing, and making quilts, words are going to show up for various reasons. And so I've got a bunch of quilts to look at today. And one of the things, that I hope Quilt Nerd does, and I know because I talked to a Quilt Nerd the other day who said as much, it's about learning about the culture of quilts and the history of them because it's so interesting. But also, I genuinely hope that the things that we look at inspire you to do things with your quilts that maybe you hadn't thought of. I don't make too many quilts these days. I don't know. I want to, but I just don't have the bandwidth. I've been turning a lot of binding for this one project, but I know that when I do, I have a lot of ideas, and a lot of the things that I am drawn to these days have been from things I've seen on the show myself, because I'm watching along with you, right? So let's take a look at some words on quilts. Hey, Slops Frog, I really like your name. Everybody's getting very animalistic with their names. We have a hedgehog. We have many birds. We have, let's see, what do we have? What do we have? I don't know. I don't know. We have a lot of animals, and I'm here for it. It's great. Anybody watching in YouTube or Facebook land, I'm glad you're here. I don't always see your names in my feed, but I'm really glad that you're watching. Druid Godmother, hey, it's Babe. So, hey, Quiltish, let's take a look at some of these quilts. Let me get small. We have puppies. Yeah, we have puppies. And let me just show you some of these. I've got, and then I've got an announcement at the end of the show that's a very big deal about a show that I'm going to go to with my mom that you can come along to. So don't miss that. Sorry, I'm having a bit of a thing. So this quilt is one of my favorites. I'm going to make the chat a little smaller. In fact, I may take the chat off the screen for this because I like having it on screen, but here with the words, I think the letters and things in particular would benefit from being able to see the whole thing. This quilt is so great. This quilt has a lot of words on it. And one of the things that's so great about this quilt is that it's signed. It's also signed by its maker in applique. So let's look at the whole text here. It says Abraham Lincoln. He's not the maker of the quilt. We're getting there. Abraham Lincoln, Grant, I remember what that was. President, right? Colfax, 6, and the Union Forever. So it's a Civil War commemorative quilt, right? 1869, and she has put the year on there. Good for her. This goes beyond quilt labels, right? This is a new level, next level. The Union Star, she's put there, and then in her signature line is this quilt was made by Elizabeth Holmes in her 68th year. Yeah, and then these great hands, which are like trapunto. These are like puffy hands. I mean, you got to hand it to Elizabeth Holmes, not of Theranos fame, a different Elizabeth Holmes. I wonder if they're related. I prefer this one. But this is a very important quilt, and I wanted to start with it because it is it's the quilt that inspired the backwards N in the Quilt Nerd logo, and the star in the Quilt Nerd logo is that star. It was the graphic designer. I sent this quilt to him so he could use that particular star in the logo. So it's an important one. Maybe she'll quilt it. You know what? Elizabeth Holmes should find a hobby for sure. So that's a really great one. One of the first examples I wanted to bring up. This quilt is really funny. It gets a lot of airtime. I don't know. We featured it in a Quilt Folk, or we took pictures of it for Quilt Folk when we were at the Quilt Museum in Nebraska. The International Quilt Museum has this quilt, and I don't know. I always think about it when I think about quilts with words on them. Oh, the sun is coming. Hang on. This is the only problem with doing this stream in the daytime. I don't know, guys. I might have to change my whole rig. We'll see. It's another reason for me to be very quick today, because fighting the sun. Okay, but I think about this quilt because it has so much text on it, but also it's what it says, okay, and what it was. So it says, "Attend, young friends, whilst I belate the dangers you are in, the evils that around you wait, while subject unto sin." And so I'll let you read the rest of it. You can go through it. This was a wedding quilt, yeah, from what I understand, by Anke, Trump, Ellison, Hutchison. Hey, Connie, thanks so much for liking the stream. I appreciate you. I really do. A little champagne cork for you. Thanks for watching Quilt Nerd. So, I mean, a wedding quilt, it's not, to me, it's not really the vibe that I'd want, on a quilt for my wedding, but I don't know. I mean, maybe she was really worried about him, Maybe they were like a Sid and Nancy kind of couple, toxic love. And she was like, "Look, you've got young friends, you're in danger. Stop listening to that rock and roll, stop reading them full books, or you're going to be in trouble." So that's an interesting quilt, made in 1882, 81 by 76 inches. A lot of words on that. This quilt is so great. And Stephanie Cake, because she is a goddess, she is going to put some Abe Books affiliate links in the chat. We are an Abe Books affiliate at Quilt Nerd. I talk about a lot of books on this show, and most of them are out of print, but you can get them used, right, through Abe Books in particular, which is owned by Amazon, because everything, including Twitch, is owned by Amazon. But if you use our affiliate link, which is in the Twitch chat, we get a few, we get like, I don't know, 60 cents or something like that, depending on the price of the book. And it's great, because if everybody gets these wonderful books, it adds up. So I appreciate that. Anyway, Hearts and Hands is a book that every quilt nerd should have in their library, by Julie Silber and Pat Ferrero and, Judy Elfling. Yes, I think so. Anyway, so the link will go in there. And this is a quilt that's in that book that is so cool. It's so cool. So it was made in 1884. And there is text on this quilt down at the bottom, and what it says will kind of blow your mind. The age in which we live, 1884. Wow. It was made by Mrs. Saunders. That's who it's credited to. So somewhere, or in the papers of provenance for this quilt, it is attributed to Mrs. Saunders, and it's in the Mississippi State Historical Society Museum, and it's 90 by 101. And I can turn the quilt. Let me see. Rotate clockwise. Yeah. So you can kind of see a little bit better these, I mean, the locomotive, right? 1884, the age in which we live. I mean, it's just incredible. When I first saw this quilt, I wondered if it was a Century of Progress quilt, the Century of Progress exhibit, and I have one of those quilts to show you today, the Century of Progress Sears quilt contest, because there's a lot of words on those quilts, and this is sort of following a transportation theme that showed up in a lot of those quilts. But nope, 1884, the age in which we live, and a picture of that is in Hearts and Hands, so you should get it. Oh, this is a really good one. Tobacco sacks. I don't know what my screen is doing really today, but yeah, tobacco sacks. Wow. I don't know. I think maybe this quilt I got from Quilt Digest. I usually put it in the file name, but for some reason I don't have it here. I do know this quilt was owned by Shelley Ziegert, the well-known, I don't know, quilt figure, a figurehead, a matriarch in the quilt community, right, for a long time, and a collector of many amazing quilts, really truly unique quilts for a long time. I don't know if she's still collecting. Someone who knows her might know, but yes, tobacco sacks, Kentucky, made in Kentucky, 65 by 84 inches, and it was made between 1930 and 1945. And you know, one of my goals is to have a full Quilt Nerd font. You see, the more people who subscribe, and you should totally subscribe, the more people who subscribe, the more likely it is that I'll be able to get a full alphabet and numbers in that Quilt Nerd font. And the S is really good in this, you know, the B, you know, I want those funky, what did you say, Marianne? Jaunty. Oh, great, Cindy. Thank you so much for liking the stream. I appreciate you. Thank you very much. The sound effects are ridiculous. Anyway, tobacco sacks. I mean, clearly made from tobacco sacks, and the quilt maker had a good time doing it. It's just so cool. I mean, this is art, right? It references itself, I think, in a way. So, is it pictorial? I don't know. It's got letters on it. Oh, are letters on quilts? Does that make it pictorial? Or are we just talking about semiotics again? Oh, I can't with that. Signs and symbols. I can't, yeah, we don't have time for that today. So one of the more famous quilts in the entire, you know, American canon has got to be Crazy City by C. Winnie. I've never really, I think it's pronounced C. Winnie. It might be C. Win. I'm going to show you the bottom. Wow, look at that, fancy. So down at the bottom, her signature as well. Could be a fellow, but I'm safe to assume it was a female who made this quilt, C. Win or Winnie. And it's called Crazy City because that's what it says. That is what the lady called her quilt, Crazy City. Hang on, let me go down here. Crazy City, 1885. And this one is, hey, Raoul and Sue John. This is one that is in the Fabric of a Nation exhibit, or was in the Museum of Fine Arts Boston Fabric of a Nation exhibit. So some of you who got to go to that exhibit might have seen this quilt up close. I really hope I get to see it soon, and I'll tell you about how that might be possible at the end of the show. Yeah, Crazy City. And it's been said that perhaps the very center of this quilt was another quilt, that it started out as, you know, that it was a piece of another quilt that was either put on to this one, or the quilt with the houses and everything was built around it. I'm not sure. And there's another one that's similar to this. Yeah, it's a great one. It's a great quilt with text on it. Here is one more before we move on to another screen, kind of another batch. I have 2 batches of quilts with words on them to show you, and it is just kind of an eye candy show, right? An inspiration. It's inspiration station, is what it is. I don't know. So this is a Century of Progress exhibit, and I'm afraid I don't have a really great picture of it, but I wanted to show it because I found it. I've never seen this one, but I recently found it. It's at the Chicago History Museum. So it's possible. I really want to go to the Chicago History Museum and see the quilts in person. And I'm trying to think of a good reason that they would let me do that. I guess I can just say I'm an independent researcher and I I am working on a manuscript about a quilt maker who lived in Chicago and made quilts in Chicago, Bertha Mextroth, and I'm not sure they might have a Mextroth. So I got to ask. It's a good reason to ask the History Museum, which is like right over there, if I can come in and get in there and carefully look at quilts with someone. But the Century of Progress exhibition was here in Chicago in 1933-34, and there was a big contest from the Sears Company, and there was a lot of money you could win if your quilt won first place or got honorable mentions and all that. And it was the Great Depression, so 25,000 quilts were submitted to the contest, and if you got extra points, or you could be considered for extra prize money if you incorporated the theme, the Century of Progress, into your quilt. And so a lot of the quilts have text on them talking about, the progress that America had made over the past however many years. So, agricultural development, this quilter put into her quilt, television, aviation, International Exposition, June 1st through November 1st, so she has the date and the occasion. Wireless telegraphy. What else does it say? Incandescent lights. This is incredible. You know what? Here you go. If you take one thing from this stream today, somebody needs to do this quilt again. I mean, make it again. Internet, smartphones, emoji, live stream, technology. Seriously, wouldn't that be fun? Automobile industry, battery-powered cars you could put. What else could you put? Artificial intelligence. Do it. Please, someone do it. Please, someone do that. Make it. Wouldn't it be fun? It would be so fun. Oh, yes, and thank you, Stephanie, for putting that. I knew there was something in my mind. I was like, what was I going to say? There's a wonderful canonical book written by Barbara Brackman and Mary Kay Waldvogel on the Century of Progress. And the quilts. You have to have it. You must have it. So click on that link and get it through A Books and us. But yeah, wouldn't that be great? Who will do it? Who will do it? And Sue John, how is that text created? You know what? I wondered myself. Unfortunately, the photo is, you can tell, it's really low res. I mean, is it printed? I mean, not like, digitally printing. That digital printing would be another thing you could put on the quilt. But I don't, embroidery. It might be embroidery because it's too thin to be applique, I think. But I just don't know. Anyway, Helen Mallets is the name of the woman who made this quilt. And it's not in that Patchwork Souvenirs book, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, maybe it could be one day if that is reprinted, and it should be. Okay, so here I've got those are more older ones, and I have some newer quilts with words on them that are very cool. And I'm also going to play a short video, a 2-minute video for you about a very powerful quilt that has words on it. It's like no other quilt I've ever seen, by Susan Hudson. So we'll look at that. This is a fantastic book by Carolyn Maslumi and Patricia Pongratz, Threads of Faith. Recent works from the Women of Color Quilters Network that Maslumi started some decades ago. And these are quilts that reflect and communicate the faith life or the faith walk of the quilt makers in the book. And the one I picked out, there's not a ton of them that have text on them. In this particular book, and I was surprised because a lot of Bible quilts, a lot of religious themed quilts do contain text, Bible verses and so forth. It makes sense, right? But there weren't as many story quilts, though. I would say most of these quilts here are story quilts because they are communicating, I don't know, not necessarily a story of a person's faith, but a narrative of some kind. This quilt here in this book was made by Adrienne Cruz, C-R-U-Z. Let me get this. Whoops. And so here's what she has to say about it. It's not a lot of text, but she says, quote, "I researched the Bible for an affirmation to address the struggle of wise action I hoped to match the beauty of the words with the surrounding design, creating a prayer cloth of inspiration. And Proverbs 7:4, which is included here with the text, says, treat wisdom as your sister and insight as your closest friend. I'm going to read that again. That is awesome. Proverbs 7:4, treat wisdom as your sister and insight as your closest friend. That is awesome. And so this quilt is called Proverbs 7:4. It's 30 by 18 inches. It's pretty small. Cotton and metallic fabrics, brass and beaded ornaments, cowrie shells, and lemon verbena. Wow, is that the orange? The orange, are those beads? Lemon verbena, is that like in the quilt? God, I'm so dumb about these things. Maybe. Does it like smell good? Oh, I'm ignorant about what that would be. Is it? I don't know, but I like the idea of that. Yeah, it's really good. Hey, Trine and Sullivan. Hey, Aunt Nino. So I liked that one quite a bit. And then, when you're talking about words on quilts, I mean, patriotic quilts, there's tons of words on these kinds of quilts. You could say Elizabeth Holmes's quilt from 1869 was a patriotic quilt. This book is cool. It's from it's the book they made after the Great American Quilt Contest in the 80s. My mom has a quilt in here that has words on it. I could have included that one. Sorry about that. And so when you have patriotic quilts, like think about World War II quilts, lots of V-Day quilts with, the letter V on them, but, victory and presidents' names and all that. The Mayor McCheese. Mayor McCheese, are you the mayor of Cheesetown? If you are, we're really happy to see you here. We eat a lot of cheese around here. I just have a hunch. I don't know for sure, but I feel like we're a cheese crowd. We're definitely a wine crowd. Anyway, the quilt that I took from this book, I had many options, but I liked this one, and this one is a little more contemporary. Mine Eyes Has Seen the Glory. This Land Is Your Land. The quilt maker who made this in 1985, her name is, not Of Thee I Sing, no. Her name is Pat Carambe, and the quilt is called Of Thee I Sing. And she is in Connecticut. And she says this, quote, red and white schoolhouse quilts were very popular in the 19th century. The motif is especially appropriate for this artist. Oh, this is not her speaking. Sorry, it's the authors of the book, Carter Houck and Robert Bishop. Okay. They say, the motif is especially appropriate for this artist because she was once an elementary school teacher. Her fondness for patriotic music is reflected through the inclusion of song titles that enclose the schoolhouses. Huh, interesting. So they're all song titles. Some of you may have caught that. I didn't see it myself. Let's see. And they talk about the competition. Okay, yes, and yes. Yeah, interesting. She does say, quote, when I was making this piece, it was the first time in a long time that I had thought in depth about my own pride in being an American. One of the wonderful things about quilting is that there are times in the process when your mind is free and your hands continue to do the mechanical parts unconsciously. Yeah, I believe a quilt must be functional. It is something that must warm people physically and mentally. Interesting. I kind of agree. At the end of the day, I do actually agree with that. I think that's what makes quilts so incredible, is that it's art that you can wrap around yourself, or, the baby can barf on it and you can wash it in the washer. I think that's pretty cool. I've got just a few more. I'm doing okay on time. I'm trying to keep this under an hour or less. It just goes so fast, the time. This book is kind of harder to get, but it's interesting. It's an interesting book. There are really good quilts in it. Bold Improvisation by Scott Heffley. I have issues with some of the text included, but the quilts are great. So I have it and I look at it often. This quilt is so cool. I mean, who wouldn't like that? Especially if your name starts with M or W. Or W. You know what? That's interesting. That is interesting. Let's rotate it. Let's rotate that. I mean, are we sure? Are we sure? Hey. Are we sure that it's an M? Might be a W. Which way do we like it more? Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't think, unless the text says that we know for sure that it's an M, I would say it's up for debate. Ooh, Mishral. She's good. She's very good, people. We're going to play the little I'm smart sound effect from Romy and Michelle's high school reunion.
That's what I do. I invented Post-its.
Yeah, true. No, it's good. It's a good point. It could be an E. Anyway, so it's in the book like this, and it says of this quilt, it may have been made from clothing. It was created around 1960, found in Kansas City, Missouri. Machine pieced, hand quilted. Yeah, I see work clothes in there. Holes are patched. The clothing seams opened in numerous places around the quilt. Okay, he does say perhaps the M in the central block or a W if turned the other way around is the initial of the person who made the quilt. Very interesting. Yeah. It's really great. I love the composition of this quilt. So that counts as a quilt with a letter on it, just one. I think I'll come back to that one. Yeah, I'll come back to the Bible one if there's time, because I want to talk about this one. This is really, this quilt I saw, it belongs to the Art Institute here in Chicago, and I saw it a few years ago when they had this quilt exhibit. It was a modest exhibit, but it was really good at the Art Institute, maybe 2016 or so. It's called the Diner Quilt. It was made in 1950, and it's not attributed to anyone. There's no name on it, which is just wild to me because it's so very intentional. I mean, every quilt is intentional. People who say, improvisationally pieced quilts are, I don't know, just sort of somehow that the quilters who make them don't make choices necessarily. And it's like every piece of patchwork you put together, every piece of applique, you make a choice to do that. You're not just like, and like throwing fabric around and it ends up a certain way. So all quilts are intentional, but this is very painterly, right? And it's so intense. Like I just am really surprised that the quilt maker didn't put the name on it, or that people who owned this quilt didn't make sure that the name, pardon me, stayed with it. It's really cool. Yep, exactly, Sherlock. Improv is just choices made in a different order. Hey, Caitlin, the shading on the cutlery, I saw that same thing. Now, I can't remember if that was paint or somehow it had to have been. The image quality is not amazing. Sometimes I can hack an image on the internet a little bit and actually access the higher res version, but none of my little tricks worked. But I love this quilt. Diner open. Try our blue plate special. Man, the pie and coffee. Yes. It's really good. I'm into it. I had a hamburger yesterday. A friend took me out to lunch, and I've really been watching my pennies, so I haven't been getting takeout, and I was like, this is the best burger I've ever had in my life. It was delicious. And this one is by our friend Mary Fogg. It was made in 1993, and this has probably the most text of any quilt I'll show you today, and I just have two more to share. So enjoy it while it lasts, right? This is called A Few Words About Sewing. And Mary Fogg passed away, forget when, within the last 10 years, I believe. And she lived in the UK, and she made really cool quilts. If you remember that it's, what's it called? I think it's called The City. It's all those suits. It's like done in strips, and it's all these men's suits. Not actual suits, but they're, I can grab a picture of it before we leave. But it's just so cool. It's such a great quilt. And she made that. She made some other things. And I did a segment on Mary Fogg months ago, and her daughter saw it. And she emailed us to say that it was really cool that we did that. And she said her mom was awesome and she would have loved that. So that was one of the early neat things that happened with making Quilt Nerd. So she says of this quilt, she says, hold on, she said, oh, it's here. Yes. Mary Fogg made this in 1993, and she says, in a quilt making period of about 30 years, I have explored several paths. One I have found rewarding was the discovery that I could produce my own handwriting with a free sewing machine needle, moving the cloth rather than a pen or pencil. And yeah, that's how a mid-arm machine works, and how, yeah, you're on your domestic machine too, right? So she was doing her own handwriting. Very cool. So for this quilt, if you'd like to see the whole thing and read it, this is in the collection of the Quilt Museum, the International Quilt Museum. So if you go to internationalquiltmuseum.org probably and search the collections for Mary Fogg, it's Fogg, you can read all of the text on this quilt, and it's pretty cool. And the last one today, we have a gentleman here. Well, no, we're going to look. Susan Hudson is going to close the show. That's right. She's our big finish. But this one, we've heard from Pale Gray Labs before. We've talked about these guys. Theodore Gray. Yeah. It's not been too bad with the sirens today. That's okay. That's good. Anyway, Pale Gray Labs is an interesting, I don't know, consortium of really nerdy scientist mathematics people. And I looked, I don't know where they are. One of you might be able to find them, but like where they are in the country. Maybe California. Anyway, they do such cool stuff. Pale Gray Labs, they do quilts and they quilt pie, like 3.14, with like with so many numbers repeating, after the 3.14, whatever, all the numbers in that infinite. Hey Wanda, thanks for liking the stream. I'm glad you're watching. Thanks for coming by. With all those, those numbers after that infinite, pi number, whatever, they quilt them into this circle on a long arm machine. Oh, sorry, you probably want to read what's here. And they do, fractals and things. So Pale Gray Labs is so interesting. So this is Theodore Gray, and he'll make you a custom word quilt. Hey, J.H. Chasm. He says of this, so this is, he'll make you a custom word quilt starting at $299. So that's the price that it starts at. And it's Theodore Gray with an A. So if you Google Theodore Gray custom word quilt, you'll find him right away. And he says, we can make a quilt out of any set of words you like. We'll even do naughty words. If that's what you want. When you place an order, you'll have a chance to specify which words specifically you want. Keep in mind that the fewer words there are, the better they will look. 10 to 30 words maximum is a good target. Let's start at the top of this and read it. Happy birthday, Bob, perhaps, he suggests. The sky's the limit on quilted word cleverness. Reverse applique letters, which means different color fabric for the letters, is available for an extra charge. Cool. If you know what reverse applique is, says Theodore, and are willing to do your own cutting out of the letters, you can order at the regular price and add a comment that you'd like double fabric so you can cut out your letters. No extra charge for that. That's cool. Include special requests for fabric color or layout in the form you will get on checkout, and we'll get back to you if there's any trouble with your choices. Pretty awesome. Pale Gray Labs and Theodore Gray. I love it. They're very neat, these people. So yeah. Okay. So I am going to now play you this short video. It's 2 minutes, and then I'll give you the big announcement in case you didn't hear it on Tuesday night. Okay? So here we are, right here. This is a quilt with text on it that stop me in my tracks. It's a quilt everyone should see, should know about. Okay, so by Susan Hudson, and let's hear her talk about it on Craft in America, the PBS special.
Susan Hudson nesle kia ani nesle deschini basha shin tabahada che la kaidene de Shanali from Toho Soy, Sheep Springs, New Mexico, Navajo Nation. This was my thank you to actually the 29 original code talkers. It's my thank you letter to one of my chays. He was a code talker, Joe Morris Sr. And what I did was to write the story down for people to understand that when he went to war, he never had to fire his gun. Our beautiful language were the bullets. And when he was in the war and when he was doing the translating of where they had to drop the bombs or where they needed help, he was part of the code talkers where people don't realize that millions of people are alive today because of them. What I wanted to do was to thank my grandfathers, my chays, because when they went to see the world, they saw different things. And when they came back, they changed our education system. And one of them was Dinnett College. And so what I did in the middle to honor him, to thank him, was the colors, the 4 directions, the 4 colors for Dinnett College, where we were able to go and get an education. And so now we went from Saley, now it's going to different parts of the reservation. This is to honor them. I'm just here. They're the famous ones. They're the ones that these are their stories that I'm telling. So when I know that in the old days that they prayed for me, like I prayed to them to thank them. And I pray for my futures. I pray for my children. I pray for my grandchildren. I want to pray for my descendants, because the story is going to keep going on. These quilts are going to be in museums, and people are going to be able to come and see them. And they're going to know my story.
Yeah, last year at QuiltCon, there was an exhibit of Susan Hudson's quilts, and I've met her several times and admire her a lot for the work that she makes, and and who she is. She's incredible. She I don't know. Sherry, thank you so much for liking the stream, and she talks to you in a way that, like, you will listen to her. You know, you might not listen to me. It's probably fine. But when she talks about her culture and her heritage, she's, I don't know, she's a communicator that you just have to listen to her. You can't help but do it. And she has things to say that I need to hear about the history of America and the quilts that she makes. And if you ever get the chance to hear her speak or meet her, you should definitely do that. So thank you, Craft in America, for talking to us about Susan Hudson's quilt. And she has a whole segment in that show about her quilts, and that can be viewed on YouTube. So you should definitely check it out. And Joe Cunningham's on that show, and Victoria Finley Wolf, and it's a party. So thank you so much, Dolly, and for liking the stream. I appreciate you watching, and I want to say thanks to Browell for subscribing at Tier 1. You've been subscribed for 2 months. You're on a 2-month streak. Appreciate it. If you want to subscribe to Quilt Nerd, and here's my big announcement. Here comes my big announcement. If you want to subscribe to Quilt Nerd, it's great. You don't have to watch ads, and you don't have to worry because you'll be entered in the giveaways that are coming up. And it supports the show, which is really helpful because there's a lot of stuff that I have to do to make it happen, and your subscriptions really help. And there's subscriber-only streams, and that's what my announcement is about. There's private VIP streams for people who subscribe to the show, and there's a very big deal that just sort of came through. There's a very cool exhibit in California at the Skirball Cultural Center. 30-some quilts from the Museum of Fine Arts Boston Fabric of a Nation exhibit are being displayed at the Skirball through March 12th. And my mom and I are going to go. And on the 7th of March, I'm going to do a subscriber-only private stream. I have permission from the Skirball and from the Museum of Fine Arts Boston to live stream from the exhibit. And if you're a subscriber to Quilt Nerd, you will be able to be there live with me and my mom as we walk through the exhibit. It's a very cool thing to happen. I don't know anybody else who's doing that. And so that's the kind of thing you can expect on Quilt Nerd and the kind of stuff you enjoy when you're a subscriber. And I love making this show. It is the most fun I've ever had doing something in the quilt world. Quilt Folk's pretty good. I've been there since 2016 and I've had a lot of fun there too. But anyway, I love this. I love the format. And so if you want to subscribe, you do that on Twitch. And anybody who's not used Twitch before, don't be scared. It's just another platform like anything. It's a website. It's an app, and it's here that you can subscribe to the show. So there comes the sun, 10:51, 50 minutes for a Quilt Nerd short. Not too bad. Everybody, I so appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. Subscribe over here on Twitch, and yeah, there's so much to see and talk about. So I'll see you on Saturday night at 8 p.m. Central. Thanks for coming by. Bye.